Hello and welcome to SAP on Microsoft Azure. My name is Holger Bruchelt, and in this video series we want to take a look behind the scenes of the Extending SAP Solutions using Microsoft Power Platform webinar. This is Chapter 8, where we will take a look at Power Apps again and the QnA Maker portal, which allows you to create a chatbot experience out of a simple FAQ. The goal in this video is not yet so much focused on SAP, but more on showing how you can combine different low-code solutions, like the QnA Maker portal, with Power Apps. This time we will also not only do no-code, but we will actually look at some more complex steps that can be executed with Power Apps. So let's quickly take a look at the QnA Maker portal. This QnA Maker portal, which you can connect to from QnAMaker.ai, allows you to create, using a no-code experience, a simple bot that you can integrate using REST APIs functionalities. So what we'll do first is create out of existing FAQ pages an bot or bot endpoint, so to say, that will then in the next step integrate into Power App. The integration itself in Power App is actually fairly straightforward, but you need to quickly understand how it's done. We'll use again a gallery element. So very similar like before when we connected to an SAP system and then had a list of all the products very easily in our Power App. This time what we'll do is we'll use the gallery, but we'll link it not to an SAP system. We'll link it to a collection that gets the information out of the QnA Maker. So in the very beginning, we'll create this collection that basically has two entries, so to say, one with ID 0 and one with ID 1. The ID 1 contains the name. This is basically our bot. The user that can ask a question, that can pose some questions and stuff like that. The ID 0 is then always the answer, and the answer comes from the QnA Maker. We will need to pass the knowledge base ID, which will generate. We'll need to pass the service host name, which is something that also is generated out of the QnA Maker bot homepage or page there, and then finally also an endpoint key, which is basically authentication towards our QnA Maker instance. Then we'll just post the question, and as before, we just get the questions from an input field, for example, like this one here, and then we'll just return the first answer of this specific bot. It's really easy once you understand it, but sometimes you need to take some moments to really go over this flow here, to go over this formula, how this collection actually works. But once you get this, then it's really easy to understand how you can integrate the QnA Maker into Power Apps. So we'll start with this QnA Maker portal documentation here on Azure.com. As mentioned, the QnA Maker is a functionality that allows you to create a bot out of some existing documentations. The documentation can be a web page, it can be a PDF document, or something like that. So if we go over here to the actual QnA Maker portal, then you can just click on Get Started. And with this, we are guided through a step to prepare or create a knowledge database and so on. Now, these knowledge databases, they're actually stored in your Azure subscription. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to log on or create this QnA service in our Azure subscription. So in my specific case, this user here, this demo user, does not have an Azure subscription, so I actually need to create one. This can be done very easily. So if you don't yet have an Azure subscription, then just go to azure.com/free or follow here this link, and then you can sign up to a 12-month free of charge Azure subscription. The only thing that you need to do is just provide your your contact information and stuff like that, and a credit card. You don't need to, or this credit card will not be charged unless you explicitly say so. But yeah, just fill out this free Azure account, and then you should be able to get started. Now I'll switch over to another user here where I actually have an Azure subscription already. So I'll just, as before, I'll click on Create. And the first thing that we need to do, as mentioned, is create this knowledge database. With this knowledge base, I can just click on Create a QnA service. And this time, when I'm redirected to the Azure portal, you will see that I have a valid subscription. So I can just use it from there, and then create the specific service. So we need to select the subscription. We need to fill out the resource group name. So basically the place in Azure where all the QnA Maker specific services are bundled or grouped together. So I'll just call it RG resource group QnA Maker. Then we can select a name for our QnA Maker. I'll just call it QnA Maker Power App. And then we can select the pricing tiers. So there's a free pricing tier available that I can select, similarly here for the Azure Search pricing. So I'll just stick with the free version because I don't need anything special. Then I just click on Create, and after some time, this QnA Maker service should be available in Azure. Once the deployment is done, we can head back over to the QnA Maker portal. Just refresh the page, and now we should actually see our QnA service here. So now you can see the subscription that we have. If I take a look there, then we can see the actual QnA service that we just created, including the language that we can select. So I'll just stick with English. And now we can actually give the knowledge base a name. So in my specific case, I'll just call it Surface FAQ. And as a baseline, as a document source of this FAQ, I'll just take a URL of the support.microsoft.com pages, add these URLs in here. Again, I could also upload a PDF document or something like that. And then I'll just click on Create Your Knowledge Base, and the QnA Maker will actually query all these documents and then create an FAQ list out of this. So here you can see the questions, you can see the answers. I can also test my knowledge base directly from here. So if I enter a certain question, so for example, can I wipe data from my Surface, then I get the answer which was provided as part of the FAQ. With this, I can just save and train my knowledge base, and then publish the whole content so it's available for external consumption. As a result, now we get the access point, we get an authorization key, and also a knowledge base key. And this is very important data because we'll need it later on when creating the Power App. So with this content now, we can actually switch over to Power App. So what we want to start with now is again creating a blank canvas app. So we are going to create a small phone application. We call it Contoso Support. And yeah, we'll just kick off the creation of the Power App here in our portal. So now we'll just start dragging and dropping different functionalities to our canvas. So we'll have a home screen. I just called this screen home screen. We'll have a welcoming message, Contoso Support, that we'll add here at the top just to greet the user basically. And then what we'll need after some formatting, we'll actually need an input field. So this is the field where we want users to enter a question in their Power App, which we then obviously we will hand over to our QnA Maker bot to provide us an answer. So here we'll have this field, ask me anything. We'll give this field a name, QnA question txt. And obviously we also need to have a button that allows us to submit this question. So again, we'll just drag and drop a button here from the left-hand side. We'll call the button ask and give it also a technical name. So ask QnA. We'll just move it around a little so it matches a little better from a UI perspective. And that's all there is for now. So the next thing that we need to do is create a collection where we actually want to store the question and the answers that are coming from the QnA Maker. So we'll create this clear collect. So we'll really start a new collection. We'll call it chat, and we'll have a few fields in these chat. So the first one is an ID, an identifier, which we'll use for the question and the answer. Then we'll have a name, whether this question is coming from the user, John, or whether it's coming from the QnA bot. And we'll have a text, which can either be the question or the answer. Obviously, in this very first entry, we want to have a welcome message, and we'll just say welcome, and then we'll put in the username, so you can see that there's always this IntelliSense, so I can see what I need to, what variables are available, what I can type in here. But in this specific case, we'll just say, well, take the username, and then how can I help you? This will be our welcoming message, which is the first entry basically that we have in this specific collection. As a next step, we need to actually create a new screen where we want to have our chatbot interaction. So we'll go to new screen, we'll have this blank screen, we'll rename it to QnA screen, and that's it. Here's where the actual logic, the actual connection to our QnA bot will come from. Obviously, we need to be able to navigate there, so clicking on the button ask, we'll apply the action navigate to the second screen, and that's already all that we need to do. So with this, let's switch over to the QnA screen and start with providing this screen with a title. So this will be our Ask Me Anything screen. So now we need to populate our Ask Me Anything screen with data. So for this, we'll take the vertical gallery element and just rearrange it so that it looks nicely on this specific screen, resize it a little. But this is the place where we'll display the data from our QnA bot. So similar like what we did in one of the first videos where we had the Power App and where we linked this Power App to SAP data, to this product list in the SAP data. What we are now doing is we are linking this vertical gallery to the results of our chat collection. So in order to do this, we'll use the QnA screen, and once it is visible, once it's shown, then we'll populate our collection, our chat collection, with the first few informations. So first of all, we'll put the ID 1, we'll put in the username in the variable name, and for the text, we'll actually take the question that was asked in the input box from the first screen. So this question txt dot text, that's the information that the user entered in the first screen, and this will be the first entry in our collection. So now that we have some data in our collection, what we can do is we can select here this gallery element, and we can assign the chat collection to our vertical gallery. So now we have this first entry. You can see that the vertical gallery also changed a little. We have the initial question, and we can add the second entry into our collection, into our chat collection. So the second one obviously will have ID 0, and we'll have the name of our Contoso chatbot or Contoso bot, and the text should be the answer of the QnA Maker. So what we'll do is we'll add another data source. So here under Add Data, we can search for QnA Maker. We can select the QnA Maker data source, or the QnA Maker collection here. And this is now something that we can reference directly here in our chat collection. So the text should be coming from QnA Maker. So we'll actually, the QnA Maker provides us with a list of answers. So we just want to take the first one for our simple bot. So we'll select the first answer from QnA Maker generate answer. We need to enter our knowledge base ID. So remember when we published our bot before, we had this knowledge base ID, we had the URL, and we had also the endpoint key. So we will all use this information from our previous step. And now we'll enter the question. So this QnA question txt.text. This will be passed over to the QnA Maker generate answer functionality. We want to have all the answers. Take the first one and then just put in the answer as the text for our chat collection. So again, the first one just returns the username, hello John. It puts the question there, and the second one retrieves the answer from the QnA Maker, more specifically the very first answer from the QnA Maker, and puts this also into our chat collection. So with this, let's give it a try. We can go back here. We can go back to the first screen. This is the Ask Me Anything, and if I Alt click on the ask button, then we can see Johnny Lear Schumann is the first name. We see the Ask Me Anything question, and actually in the background, the QnA Maker is currently working, and it's already returning us some information. I'm better at answering questions. Okay, so this is obviously, this was a very stupid question, and the answer is I'm better at answering questions. So that's perfectly fine. Now, obviously, we need to make this a little more better looking, so we can remove these icons here, and also these images can be improved. So instead of the sample image, what we'll use is we'll upload one image for our bot, and then actually we'll use another image for the user that is part of the Azure Active Directory. So we'll just say if this item equals, or the ID of the specific item is 1, or if it's 0, then we'll display the user image. So remember, we had this ID 1 is the user, ID 0 is the actual bot. So if this item ID is 1, then display the user, the picture of the user. If it's not, then just display this SAP on Azure logo in here. So now we can just beautify this a little further, decrease the size of the name, maybe make the answer box a little wider so we have a little more space. But yeah, that's just beautification. So now let's give it another try. Let's start and check out this QnA Maker. We'll go into this preview mode here, and this time I'll ask a real question. Can I wipe my data? So you can see the question is displayed here, and now after a few seconds we get the answer from our QnA Maker. So when a Surface device is returned, Microsoft Service Center, it goes through blah 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 blah. So this is really the answer that was part of the FAQ document that was published on this support website. Now obviously we forgot one thing. We forgot to be able to go back from our QnA Maker screen to the home screen. So we'll just add another button. We'll also add another text input field so that the user can ask another question without having to go back to the home screen. Obviously, similar like on the home screen, we need another button there to actually ask the question or submit the question. We'll need to provide the same syntax or action behind this specific button. So when we now select the button, obviously we need to get the question then from this second input field, but now we'll just copy and paste the very same content from the home screen. We only need to make sure that obviously now here with the second button we need to adjust the input field, the question field. So instead of this QnA question txt, we now need to get the question from the second input field, so from the QnA a question 2. And now we're good to go again. So we can again go into this preview mode. I can maybe start with this, can I wipe my data? So you can see here this question, all is nice. And now I can just ask another question. So we'll put in the question, can I buy an SSD for the Surface device? You can see the question immediately. You also see the answer from the screen. Now, the last thing that I had forgotten here, we obviously need to also assign an action to this back button so that now if I click on back, we are redirected back to the home screen. So with this, we have actually accomplished our task to embed a small Q&A bot into our Power App. So the only remaining thing is just to save our Power App so that we can easily load it again at a later point in time.